May 27th, 1997.
May 27th, 1997.
May 27th, 1997.
The Jarrell, Texas tornado of 1997.
When the storm warning sounded in Jarrell on May 27th, 1997.
The major tornado event that moved through central Texas on May 27th, 1997.
All right, let's do it. May 27th, 1997. Before we get this video started, I wanted to quickly thank Levi for the suggestion for this video and for helping me out with a certain portion of it. If you have a tornado that you'd like to see me document in the future in this series, make sure to leave it down in the comment section below. Enjoy. Jarrell, Texas. A small town in the central portion of the Lone Star State, being located just 40 miles north of Austin, Texas, and 20 miles south of Killeen, Texas. Proximity to these cities have led to a large increase in the population within the city limits over the past couple of years. Since the pandemic started, while other towns in central Texas had a significant loss in residency, Jarrell over doubled its size. However, things haven't always been so good for Jarrell. On May 17, 1989, a significant F3 tornado ended up impacting the town, injuring 28 people, killing 1, and causing millions in property damage. And less than a decade later, on May 27, 1997, a far stronger and more devastating tornado ended up hitting the town of Jarrell, killing 27, and becoming what might just be the strongest tornado in Texas history. In this video, we'll be discussing the events leading up to the tornado, the aftermath, and more. Enjoy. Now, in a lot of these other events where we talk about F5 and EF5 tornadoes, we see setups that are good, but nothing exceptional for the most part. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to this, and Jarrell is one of them massively, okay? We had an unbelievable setup for significant tornado outbreak to take place on May 27th, 1997. This was a sounding taken from the Jarrell, Texas area at 15Z. Here we can see that we had a 79-degree dew point, which is almost unheard of even for late May. We had a temperature at 89 degrees, which is also pretty good for a severe weather setup. Our storm slinky was curved at 79 degrees, which is pretty crazy. We also had ourselves quite a bit of cape in this environment, alright? We had 5,000 joules per kilogram of surface-based cape, which is just going to fuel these storms in an unbelievable manner, as they obviously did. Now, we also did have a little bit of wind shear out here in this environment. Our effective layer shear was at 47 knots, which is quite a lot for a severe weather setup like this, so things were in play for a significant tornado outbreak to take place. We're now on Tornado Archive to further examine the track of the Jarrell tornado, and one thing that's interesting to note is that contrary to the usual tornado that we end up seeing, this tornado moved south-southwest throughout the entirety of its lifespan. It started out near Prairie Dell, Texas, causing low-end damage to some trees and farmsteads, and then it continued to push southward, and it looked like we were going to have a major disaster in the town of Jarrell, as this tornado was on track to hit the downtown portion. However, it did curve at the last second off to the west, but that did not stop one of the outer suburbs one of the communities of northwestern Jarrell, Texas from getting hit by this monster tornado. And you're seeing the damage from that community on your screen now. It is unlike anything that I have ever seen before. This may genuinely be one of the most crazy photos in all of tornado damage history due to the fact that it is just so widespread. The ground scouring is some of the deepest I've seen in my entire life. We have completely slabbed homes, and the debris from those homes is not even in the picture. That debris was thrown hundreds, if not thousands of yards away. This tornado was unbelievably violent at this point of its lifespan. Now, it did continue to track off further to the west, eventually crossing the Appaloosa Cove Road, which eventually led to its dissipation. However, in its lifetime, this tornado took many different shapes. It took a wedge shape. It also briefly took the infamous dead man walking shape. It also did end up causing 27 fatalities and 12 injuries, which doesn't sound bad, but it is quite significant whenever you take into account that it only ended up hitting a few homes. Now, here is the radar loop of the Jarrell, Texas supercell and eventual tornado. We can see that this loop starts at about 2:30 p.m. Central Time and ends at about 4 p.m. Now, we can see that we don't really have a great look at this supercell due to the fact that this was back in the 90s. Radar coverage was absolutely terrible, even in an area like Central Texas. But for people that do look at radar loops like this all the time, you will note that we have a very significant velocity couplet as this tornado moved over the town of Jarrell. Jarrell there. But again, it doesn't look like something that we would typically see out of an EF5 tornado due to the fact that we were in a horrible, horrible radar hole. And at the time, the correlation coefficient product did not exist, so we were not able to see a debris signature or anything like that because this was well before its time. But the reflectivity presentation does show that this was a very healthy supercell, classic hook echo and everything, and it was very discreet until it got further down to the south there. Another interesting thing about the Jarrell tornado is that it could have quite possibly been the strongest tornado of all time in terms of maximum wind speeds. It is estimated that the Jarrell, Texas tornado had 261 to 318 mile per hour winds based off of damage. Now, we have seen 318 mile an hour gust reports for tornadoes like Greenfield and El Reno. However, it is never ever been based off of the wind speeds from the destruction around the communities that the tornado hit. So this tornado hit communities so hard that it could have had 318 mile an hour gusts just based off of that damage. So while this tornado was traveling through open fields like it was for most of its lifetime, it could have been even stronger, which leads me personally to believe that Jarrell was likely the strongest or very close to the strongest tornado in history. Now, to further assert this point, I'd like to compare this to one of the more recent contenders for the strongest tornado in history, the Greenfield, Iowa tornado. Now, that tornado did have a unofficial recorded velocity scan from the Dow of 309 to 318 miles an hour, right? It's obviously not confirmed, as that was tens of thousands of feet up into the atmosphere there with that tornado, but that is a very significant scan nonetheless. Now, something interesting to note is that you'll notice that I said 309 to 318 mile per hour gusts off of radar data, the Dow 6 recording. That is not at all the case with the Jarrell tornado. Again, the Jarrell tornado's 318 mile per hour rating was from damage. That is significant. For reference, the Greenfield tornado's rating based off of its damage was 185 mile an hour wind gusts, which is obviously nowhere near the true strength of it. So the fact that we had a 318 mile an hour gust potentially with our damage based off of the Jarrell tornado means that we could have had much, much higher whenever this thing was traveling over open fields. So the Jarrell tornado definitely could have been upwards of 350 miles an hour at its peak strength or even higher. However, we did have a problem with rating the Jarrell tornado due to the fact that it is a very, very slow mover. It was moving way slower than the Greenfield tornado, so it's still somewhat controversial. Now, as we mentioned earlier here, this is probably one of, if not the most iconic tornadic images in history. If you're a weather nerd, you can go ahead and skip over this section because I'm just going to briefly explain what a multivortex tornado is and how it caused this shape. Basically, what's going on here for anybody that's not aware, what is happening in this image is this tornado became multivortex. What does that mean? Well, the tornado has a feature with it whenever it grows so strong that it creates new air funnels, almost like tentacles that the tornado is growing, grasping for more power. Now, these tentacles in this scenario just ended up happening to create the infamous dead man walking shape here in the perfect picture. I mean, we've got two legs, we've got a little arm poking out there, and then we've got another subvortice off to the left here, not really doing much, but it's just there. So that is what caused this crazy looking tornadic shape. Alright, so for the rest of this video here, we've got a special guest, Levi WX. If you haven't already, make sure to go subscribe to him on YouTube. He does amazing severe weather coverage. He's also got quite a large Twitter following. He's the best of the best. So we've got some questions for him about the Jarrell tornado here. He has agreed to help me with this part of the video. So Levi, when did you join the weather community, first of all?
Probably, so when I got into weather, I was like 4 or 5, but it's always been in my blood. But when I actually started joining the weather community, late 2023.
Okay, so you have been a part of the community now for a while. When did you first hear about the Jarrell, Texas tornado?
Ooh, I think I was probably like 7 or 8. I was watching some sort of documentary on tornadoes, and it was the dead man walking tornado. That infamous picture where it looks like someone inside the tornado with the multiple vortex. So I was really intrigued by that. So I kind of looked into the Jarrell, Texas tornado, and it's been one that I really like to study and look at.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it really is one of those tornadoes that even folks outside of the weather community know about. I mean, it's up there with Joplin and Moore. Even if you're not a part of the weather community, it is very likely that even if you haven't heard of the Jarrell, Texas tornado, you've heard of it referred to as the dead man walking tornado. So, my next question for you here is, why do you think this tornado is so historic compared to other F5s and EF5s? Because obviously every F5 is remembered to a certain degree, but this one particularly sticks out. Why do you think that is?
So outside of the weather community, 100% that eerie structure. We had like a lot of weird phenomena where it looked like the tornado was something else, like it was a human, or like the multivortex structure was just really intriguing and scary to your average person. When you get down into the nitty gritty, when you're in the weather community, something that's really, really intriguing is the motion. It was actually moving from north to southwest. So it was a southwest mover, which we almost never see, going directly opposite what storms usually go, which is northeast.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that you probably won't see with any other tornado that is this strong. So, I've got another question for you here. The Jarrell tornado, based off of damage indicators, has been given the rating of 261 mile an hour to 318 mile an hour gusts. However, there are some caveats with that. Obviously, it was a very slow mover, so it sat over certain areas for a longer period of time, doing more substantial damage than it would have if it was moving at a decent speed. But do you think that is the strongest Texas tornado in history? And then I've got a second part question here that I didn't tell you that I'm going to ask. Do you think that it is the strongest tornado in United States history? So go ahead and start with the Texas question.
Okay, Texas question. I think it definitely could be the strongest in Texas history, but you did bring up a good point that it was a really slow mover for a lot of its lifetime, like sort of halting and just moving really, really slowly over these subdivisions. So that meant people could be enveloped in full force tornado winds for upwards of 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, and again, obviously that will lead to more significant damage to certain structures and sorts. But do you think that is the most significant and strongest tornado in United States history?
I don't think so. I can't say that.
That is probably a pretty fair claim. That is a bit outrageous. And again, I did not tell him that I was going to ask him that part, but I just wanted to see his opinion. Well, anyway, that's all from Levi. Thank you for helping out with this video here, good sir. We'll
Yeah,
see.
sounds good. Thank you.
Maybe he will be in a future episode or two of this series. Ooh. Alright, go subscribe to Levi. His link is in the description. So in conclusion, the Jarrell, Texas tornado catastrophe was potentially the most devastating tornadic event to hit the state in decades, if not centuries. We will likely never see something like Jarrell again, just with everything crazy about it. The southwest track, the dead man walking shape, the potential of 300 plus mile an hour winds. It is truly a historic and catastrophic tornado, the likes of which will likely never be forgotten in the weather community. Thank you all for watching this video. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to like and subscribe. We do severe weather coverage every day for areas all across the country. Whether it's winter storms, tornadoes, or hurricanes, we've got you covered. Also, let me know if you like this new camera angle here. We're kind of testing some new stuff out, recording this with my phone from a different area. So yeah, that's all I've got for you guys today. So again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.